walking the serpentine path, following the footsteps of the ancestors, walking the serpentine path, making our way back home. Hey ya, hey, hey ya, ho, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey, hey ya, ho. Following the serpentine path. Life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Serpentine Path podcast. My name is Claire Waudia Seed, and I'm a plant walker, song keeper, word weaver, artesana, visual and performance artist, womb wisdom keeper, and your guide on this serpentine path of life. Together, we'll dive deep into all things related to plant medicine, ancestral reconnection, intergenerational healing, womb sovereignty and bodily autonomy, rites of passage and initiation, time travel, shape-shifting, dimension hopping, the reclamation of our collective earth-based practices, and the ongoing, never-ending cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Welcome to the serpentine path where the ancestors have called us back to. Let's start at the end and find our way back home together. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Serpentine Path podcast. My name is Claire Waudia Yassid. I'm your host, and I am immensely honored and blessed and grateful to welcome a dear sister and a friend and a fellow crazy cosmic dimension traveler, my dear friend, Becca Loevy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to what unfolds.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's begin with the question that I've been asking all of my guests, which is if your ancestors were here with you now, as they always are, of course, how would they introduce you and what role would they say that you play in your family lineage?
Uh, they would probably, hopefully, giggle and say, "Oh, she's dancing. That's so good." Um, yeah, they would probably introduce me as a clown. And for so many reasons, just shaking things up. And I know that I have ancestors who have wanted to shake things up and haven't had the chance, and have wanted to move freely and haven't had the chance. So I think they see that in me, and I feel their celebration of having wanted to do that and maybe not have had the opportunity to or been forced to. So thank you, ancestors. And to all the plant ancestors, they're probably saying, "Welcome back. We missed you." Yeah.
Yeah. So sweet. And I feel so accurate just based on like how I know you and I'll interweave that. I want to give like a little bit of context for listeners. So Becca and I have known each other for a really long time. We're both from Colorado. Becca is from Colorado Springs, which is where my father's family is from. And we both grew up in the competition dance world. which is like hilarious considering like who we are now, you know? And so like technically I don't think we ever actually spoke until we got to college, but we had definitely seen each other like at dance competitions, at dance conventions. Like I remember seeing your face many times. And then getting to college and we were in the same class at NYU. Tish Dance, hey, shout out. Spent so much money on that freaking degree. Good Lord. Anyway. And Becca is a person, I don't even know how to put you into words. Like, truly, like, you're an indescribable being, someone who is so silly and so goofy and such a wild child, like, totally clown energy. And also, there's this other side to you that is so, so deep and so in touch with the mysteries of this crazy thing called life, and so capable of holding like the most extreme ends of the human experience. Which, like today, I went on a walk right before I got on Zoom with you, and I was like, damn, I know that Becca and I mean, there's a lot of reasons that we connect, but like one is that we both have really strong Scorpio placements. Yep, anybody listening who has a Scorpio placement, yeah, it's like the biggest blessing and curse because you are someone who is able to go to those immense depths. But something that I've always loved and appreciated about you, especially in the art that you create, especially in like all of the incredible artistic offerings that you have brought forth and birthed, is that you're able to move through all of these experiences of like immense human suffering and loneliness and pain and wounding and trauma and bring it up forth with this sense of like levity and joy and lightness and also like animalistic play, if that makes sense. Like you've always kind of you've humanized everything, but you've also kind of like animalized everything, I feel. And that's been really alive in you for forever. And so when I think about how you've introduced yourself and your, I guess, how your ancestors have introduced you in terms of this like clown energy, I think the clown archetype, the trickster, the one that comes forth with like levity in times where things are actually so serious and so heavy and so weighted. Like, I feel that you're a being who came forth into your family, what I know about your family tree and your lineage, and was just like, we have to bring light to this. And you do that everywhere you go. You really do. You really go into like the depths of the human shit, and you're like, I'm gonna bring some light and some joy and some laughter here. So yeah, you are such a little cosmic clown in the best way. It's like the perfect description. Cool. So I want to give you some time to just kind of like introduce yourself and your path, share whatever you want to share about kind of where you've been and how you've gotten to where you are now. So take it away, my love.
Thank you. Yeah, that Scorpio placement. It's real. I live right on the cusp of Scorpio and Sag, and like the day that Sagittarius begins. And so I feel like that kind of clarifies just what you said of like pulling myself out of the depths of like deep depression, loneliness, struggle, judgment, and kind of bringing myself out of it through laughter, through dance. So that makes sense, what you said. It's hard to know where to start, but I think something that I find so beautiful about you and some of our other friends at NYU is there was this like big push to find something below the dance because we could feel that something was wrong. And so the way I did that was dance will always be in my life, but I started my more spiritual journey through Vipassana, through meditation. I just got really quiet. Come from a large family. There's six of us, so it felt good to get quiet for like the first time in my life and just like, okay, here I am, and that's it. And it's just me and my body. And that kind of spearheaded me on a journey that took me all over the world and finally ended me up in the jungle with ayahuasca. And she was like the biggest kind of seed that I truly felt planted into me that was like ready to grow. Because there was spiritual teachings I learned in each of the places I went. I was in India, I was in Tibet, I was in Japan, I was in Istanbul. I learned things in each of those places, but the seeds, because of all of the movement, kind of, I feel like they couldn't find their rooting the same way that ayahuasca just like got in there and she was like, here you are, here's your medicine, it's in your hands, go back home and put your hands in the dirt. And those two things have like changed my life just very simply and have put me where I am now. So I'm a farmer, I'm an herbalist. I work on a farm with my partner who's the main animal tender and helps make food for people. And I'm focused more on the medicine, the herbs, the flowers. Um, but yeah, I'm still finding my way, still learning. I just keep putting my hands in the dirt, like she said, and just keep giving it back up to spirit.
Beautiful. And also, like, it's really funny when I think back to just college and all of the people that I connected to and the people who I'm still in contact with. All of us kind of went through these like fascinating jumps in consciousness, like at the same time, but not together. Like we were all in different parts of the world, actually traveling and not in connection at all. And then I would like call you or text you and be like, "What's up?" And you'd be like, "Oh, I'm going through this big thing." And I'm like, "I'm going through the same thing. What are you talking about?" You know, like it was always the same. And we would go months or even years maybe without even seeing each other in person. And it was always the same story. And I mean, obviously, it's not a surprise to me in the work that I have done now for like the past 8 years, I guess. Like it makes complete and total sense that that's like the soul family that I've called in, right? But even before we both started drinking ayahuasca, we were like always kind of doing the same thing, strangely, you know, in our own ways, like totally different trajectories, totally different paths, but always like going for it. And then, yeah, I think we both started drinking medicine, drinking ayahuasca, like I think literally at the same time, like within the same month. And there were a few other friends who like all started that journey in different places. One like in Miami, you in Peru. I went to Colombia. Like I had other people in my sphere who were all stepping into that path. And it was such a beautiful and challenging moment because I was like, whoa, like they're on a similar path to me, but we're also on different paths and like what's going on and like this is hard and like and also trying to communicate the different experiences that we were having was weird. You know, it was weird and I felt like there was a time when there wasn't resonance between a lot of different people in my life. And I feel like now that I'm in a very different phase, conversations like this are able to like flow a lot more gently. But something that you mentioned that I think is really important, that I think a lot of people who have gone like a traveler path, like how you and I have, is that there is such deep medicine in coming home. And it doesn't matter how long you stay for. If you go home to be with your family for like a week, if you go home for a month, if you go home for a whole year, if you go home and you stay home for the rest of your life, like that is a big part of the path. And it's an important part of the path, right? So, something that I think is a good way to kind of segue into the next section is like, I guess well, you already said kind of like how and why. Like ayahuasca really told you, like, go home, put your hands in the dirt. But what do you think prompted like your nomadic traveler self? And then what do you think has been not just the ayahuasca teaching of go home, but like the lineage teaching of go home for you?
Oh, yeah. It's so beautiful. I didn't listen, of course. She's like, go home. I'm like, okay. I go home. I'm like, this place sucks. And I would leave. And I just kept like, and then it would get harder. And I'm grateful for the big reason I left was loneliness. And I thought that leaving, I would be able to find something else. I was unsatisfied with like what was here. And even though I have a beautiful community here that I've known for years, I was like, but the partner's not here and the best friend's not here and the people that dance aren't here. So it won't work. And I would jump somewhere else. And I had some really painful experiences because of the root of why I was leaving, because loneliness would come with me, of course. And I would end up in these places very, very alone where I didn't speak the language. I didn't know the culture at all. I didn't know anyone. And I was like, wow, how did I run away from loneliness into deeper loneliness? Like it was such an interesting lesson of like you can't run away from your problems. In fact, they magnify. And I feel like there's something about colonization in there of like deciding to displace oneself to try and find the grass that's greener and finding your same trauma deeper in the place that you arrived to. And
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely went to ayahuasca with that loneliness, and it was my big request for her was like, help me with this. It's getting so deep. Every time I go somewhere, it gets deeper. And so she told me, come back, get to the land. And I started to meet plants and they became friends. And I realized like, oh, when I can walk around and recognize my friends, the plants, I feel better. Like, oh, hey, dandelion. Oh, hey, this linden tree that's in front of my home. Like I see you every day. I know you. And when I go somewhere new, it's not a bad thing. It's good to try something new, but I don't know the ecosystem or the energy around me. So the last travel I did was the last big one was to Maui, and I'm so grateful for the island life. Um, but one of the first medicines that came up that doesn't grow there, but grows a lot here, I was getting all these migraines because I wasn't used to the humidity and the heat. And a friend was like, "You need dandelion," and I was like, "Oh, dandelion!" Like the dandelion that was growing out of the cracks in New York City. That I was like, well, "Who's that?" And the dandelion that's everywhere in my home. Like that's what I need. Oh my God! And so I started to take dandelion and burdock, these plants that are like invasive technically in Colorado, but very hard to find in Maui. And it was like I was calling home back into me daily, and it was helping. It helped the headaches, it helped the stomach, new foods. And so I feel like there was something about when I came back the last time that was like, you have plants here that connect you to yourself, and your body is the land. And so if you can find the land that like you can resonate your body to, and it's true you can do it anywhere, but there's something interesting about home. And then I said it, I was like, and if I fall in love, I'll stay. And I fell in love. So I don't know whether the land heard me, and I did send some prayers to this land specifically for love, and I feel like that has something to do with it. Um, but yeah, it's been beautiful to be connected to a partner that's also very connected to the land, and that is his primary teacher. Um, he's told me about dreams that garlic has come to him in his dreams and been like, "Yo, I water me tomorrow. Don't forget. I remember me like specific plant beds in the. I'm like, okay." So I feel like he's taught me, oh, there's so much medicine everywhere. Medicine is everywhere. Medicine's in everything. So I love watching you laugh.
Oh my God, because I remember like when you kind of started dating this guy and I was in the jungle. I was like really, really deep on my path with Yahe. And I was alone in the jungle too, like with my elder, with Abuelo Keruin. And it was so hard. It was so fucking hard. And I remember reaching out to you and checking in. And I was like, how are you feeling with your path with the plants? And you were like, yeah, I'm here on this farm. I'm working with this one, with this one, with this one. Like my partner's really into the plants. And I was like, oh yeah, what plants? And you were like, garlic. You were like, garlic is his ayahuasca. That's what you said to me. And I died. It was like so funny, but I also think it helped me break down my own like pedestaling of ayahuasca as like the master plant, as like the teacher. And to help me just recognize that every single one of the plants is a master teacher. All of them. All of them have medicine to share. All of them have teachings. All of them have wisdom. And it's interesting as you were talking because you brought up like the displacement wounds, which I want to get deeper into because it's of course very alive in my lineage, being someone of European descent and feeling that part of me that like never feels at home anywhere and having to really deal with that, like having to really, really sit with that and to understand that it does come from my own lineage of intense colonization that happened in Europe. And then on the flip side of coming over to the quote unquote new world and colonizing and all of that pain and all of that sadness and all that suffering. And then also recognizing that like so many of the plants that grow natively in the so-called Americas, like of Turtle Island and in Colorado, are plants that also grow in Europe, right? And whether those were ones that were naturally growing here or whether those were ones that our ancestors brought and they were able to like really thrive on this land, maybe doesn't even necessarily matter so much in the grand scheme of things, but it's that conversation and this like deep knowing that plants actually don't know borders or nation states or, visas, like any of those insane human constructs that we've created to stop mobility and to like halt nomadic lifestyles and these ideas of like citizenship, right? And so plants are a beautiful teacher in that way of like you can find fertile earth within yourself and within the land. And even if this is not land that you yourself, your bloodline is technically indigenous to, doesn't mean that you can't also cultivate home and rooting within it. And that's something that when I lived in the jungle, I really felt like I knew all the plants, and none of those are like North American plants, ones that I saw that you cannot find in any territory here in the North. But they were family to me, right? And then coming back to the States and like seeing all of these plants that can't grow in the South because it's not cool enough, right? Like it's not dry enough and to recognize like wow, there are ancestors everywhere that we go. You don't just find them in the jungle, you don't just find them in the Andes, you don't just find them even in the desert, right? Like you don't just find them in one sacred territory. Everywhere on earth is a sacred territory. So I would love for you to share just anything about that, anything about like the European displacement wounds, anything about what has like called you back to home, any teachings that you've received from like the Plantcestors, like I'm open to all of it.
Thank you. Yeah, a friend reminded me recently, she was like, our ancestors carried seeds with them in their pockets in their dresses. They knew that they needed those friends. And I think the part that was perhaps a mistake or where things might have shifted in, it was just a lack of awareness. Once we landed and started walking, the indigenous people saw it. I don't know how aware we were though. There was a plant that followed us, plantain, and it was called to the indigenous people white man's footprint. They literally watched it follow us. They're like, oh, you might need that. And it helps your skin. And I think so many Europeans have dry skin, have eczema, have rashes. It's like, oh, your medicine was followed you right off the boat. Like there was some lack of awareness. And I think that's where the mistakes happened. But if we can come back to awareness and see, like, oh, this plant is following me, which shows up wherever I touch the earth, let me turn to it, let me learn from it. Then we can come back hopefully to some sense of roots because I think that's why I've had the call, and maybe you too, to go back to medicines that still have lineages, because there's this like understanding, like, oh, I'm aware of you. I'm watching where you grow. I'm watching what you like to eat, how you like to live. How can I cultivate you? And what plants do you like to live next to, you know? Because we have an ayahuasca here. It's just unknown how it was, how they drank it. But there's stories of honey locust, which there's a honey locust right outside in my farm, you know, that's a black drink that needed a MAO inhibitor, just like ayahuasca. And they have ideas about who it was, but the ceremony, and my guess is it's been taken deep underground, has been lost here, probably for a good reason. And so I think, you know, there's definitely necessity in like going back down south. Even like Lakota people have gone down south. We know this because Lakota waves have shown up in the south, specifically in Ecuador, but in other places as well, where it's like, why is the red road down here? You know, it's like, oh, people did travel to learn from other people's medicine. Like, that's not the problem. It's just having an awareness of like, did you go back home? How did you take it back home? What did you instill in the people that were that you were visiting, you know? So I feel like there's still so much to learn. And islands are different. Like Maui struggles a lot because islands have plants that uh, don't see other plants. Their resilience is different because they're on an island. And so when you bring like the nettle on Maui, it doesn't sting you. It doesn't have any reason to. It doesn't have a predator to create stinging um, needles for. But here, I'm in the desert. It's harsh here, and high desert requires stinging nettle. You know, so there has to be an understanding of when we go somewhere, especially islands, like what are we taking with us? What are our feet walking? And if we don't know, that's where the damage can start to really come and cause problems. But if we do know it, then it's our medicine. It's right next to us all the time.
Wow, okay, cool. So many cool things that you just shared. The first thing that I was laughing about was like the medicine of plantain and how they call it white man's footsteps. Because I was also thinking plantain is good for sunburns as well, and when I was in the jungle, I would always joke because I would get burnt and I would say like la maldición de los blancos, like that's the curse of white people. It's like we get burnt. And also we know what our medicine is, which is plantain and other plants that we can work with. But that story that like I at least feel and maybe is alive for you, the immense degree of profound trauma and like the trauma response of just mass cultural amnesia across the continent of Europe due to like 1500 years of insane colonization and enslavement of our peoples and having our medicine ways just like ripped from us, just like one after another. Like at a certain point, we of course turn towards alcohol to numb, right? At a certain point, we of course turn into the exact thing that we hate, which is the colonizer, because it's easier actually to do that than to continue to sit with the grief of having lost our true right relationship to nature and to being like beings and children of the heavens, right? Like these stars that were encoded into us. It's deep. It goes so deep, right? But even though we forgot because humans are dumb, actually, humans are intelligent. We had to forget. We had to forget because the pain was so intense and we had to survive. Like that's a survival mechanism at the end of the day. However, the plants didn't ever forget, right? And they were always there accompanying us, and they are our ancestors. They are like the original master teachers of this land. They've been here so much longer than us. And so even if we, as these kind of lost, displaced children of Mother Europe, have forgotten, not on purpose, right? But because we had to in order to just keep moving forward. The fact that we can tap into those sentient ancestors of plant consciousness and remember is like the greatest gift that the creator could offer to us, right? And I think that people like you and I, who end up going into intact lineages of medicine ways, go to the jungle, go to a peyote ceremony, go to Mexico, go to the Andes, wherever you're going to go to Iboga, wherever you're going to go, to kind of tap into what an intact lineage would look like, I think is a really beautiful and important and kind of necessary step for a lot of people like us who are like, I know that my people did this once. I just need a reminder. I just need a reminder of like how they did it. And there's obviously parts to it of like, you see a lot of stealing, you see a lot of appropriation, you see a lot of bad behavior, you see a lot of lack of initiation. I'm not, glossing over any of that. But when I look at the grand scheme of things, it reminds me a lot of this beautiful, the Anishinaabe people, the prophecy of the seven fires, where in one of the fires, I think it's like it is the seventh fire, yeah. There's like new people that will come to Earth. And it's actually the white people specifically who have a very, very big choice to make as to whether they're going to go back to the elders from different cultures with the same energy of stealing, or if they're going to come back with like true humility and a desire to learn and to say, please remind me of who my people were so that this story doesn't continue, right? And the other thing that I think you touched on that I want to kind of expand upon is like this idea that, these plants only belong to one lineage, or, like people never traveled. But at least the story that I have heard is that, like, peyote, the medicine of peyote originally comes from the Mexican desert. It doesn't grow naturally in other places. It originated in the Mexican desert. And before Spanish colonizers came over, the elders for hundreds of years had been having prophecies of like white ghosts basically are coming, white ghosts of death. And so we need to take our medicine ways and the luna llena, sorry, no, the media luna, the half moon, and we need to travel up to the north and we need to give it to the people there and give them peyote and give them the half moon, our altar, and they're going to hold on to it for 500 years. And then in 500 years, we're going to go back up, we're going to reconnect with them, and we're going to bring them back down, which is what we see with the Lakota, which is what we see with the Eagle Condor prophecy, which is what we see with a lot of prophecies from the so-called Americas. Like all of these groups are on the same page about how medicine ways need to be safeguarded by different peoples. And so I think that that's a beautiful thing to always remember, as I was saying earlier, like these plants know no borders, right? And they're so willing to be passed off to different stewards because they understand like that long time scale of humanity, but of the earth, which is like so much deeper. So I want to ask you something because when we were on the phone talking about this, you were talking about like plants that were coming back. So I want to hear more. Tell me.
Um, First of all, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's important to start to question and get curious about healthy nomadicism because that is what kept certain lineages alive that are still over in Europe and Asia. For instance, Mongolia, the horse people, the horse nomads, they were able to keep things alive through movement. And you can see it here. There's maps, there's food maps of how the indigenous people walked and would plant as they walked different foods so that when they returned on their path, which is where we get the idea of a road, which comes back to the red road, which comes back to the circle. It's all connected. It's how we handled living through the seasons was we moved. And animals are a big part of that too, is what were the animals that you took with you that guided you? Which for me and my ancestry is really interesting because I know that my great, 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 great grandmother came over with a pig and she was super poor and had to move because she couldn't find the right place to settle. And her pig lost, had a kid, had a little baby at the same time she did. So they were both mothers at the same time. And they had to move, and the pig mother couldn't take the move. It was too much for her system, so she passed away. So my great 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 grandmother lactated for both the baby pig and the baby that she was bringing into life. And she was like, I need this animal by my side. And so I think there's like something that's, you know, so sad. Like there's a trauma there. And I feel it in my chest. I like hold it here, like literally in my breast of like, oh my God, like you had to hold so much so that you could not only keep your generation going, but you had to also keep like the nourishment of an animal by your side. And so, we've talked about this, but right now the animal that I'm keeping by my side, by my partner's side, is a goat, and goats are nomadic as hell. They move and they change the landscape as they move. They've been known to like create deserts because they can like alchemize so many different plants, specifically invasive plants. And so I don't know, I just wanted to touch on healthy nomadicism and the importance of finding animals again. And part of that is like how we've treated horses. You can see a lot of colonization through horses, and also how we've treated ourselves, making people stagnant and taking only one plot of land and not allowing them movement. That creates a sense of slavery. And that tying down and then saying, this land is mine. I'm only going to give you bits and pieces of it as I choose. The food is mine. I'll only give it to you when I feel like it. It brings a sense of control. So when we can like bring healthy nomadicism back in, we have hope. And so coming back around to your question, um, there's a plant in the Roman Empire. It was known very well as an abortifactant. It's in the carrot family. Sophilia is her name. And she was so important because they were, and this has been going on for a while, figuring out who needs to have birth and who doesn't need to have birth. There was active plant abortifactants, and she was one of them, and she was overused, so she went extinct, which comes back to the Anishinaabe of the seven fires. We're in the sixth mass extinction right now, from what I understand. So she was part of one of those extinctions, and they thought that she was gone. And she was on the Roman coin. She was like important. And recently, very recently, they found her like a year ago in Africa, of all places, which isn't where she was, which makes me wonder, like, was there some kind of nomadicism? Was there some kind of, let's get this plant somewhere else? And she potentially was dormant too. So she was waiting for her moment to kind of shine, which is hopeful. It's like maybe when our elders pass, maybe when we lose that connection, that's not the end. Just like death isn't the end of our cycle. It's the opportunity to wait for the soil to be cultivated in a good way, to set our prayers and intentions, and to feed the holy until it's the right time for something to sprout again. And so she's back, and it's so exciting because it's like, oh my God, we thought you were gone, which is just so hopeful to me of like, okay, so much of my lineage is forgotten, so much of the roots. I don't have any plant that I can speak to in my lineage that's been brought to me, any. And that's so sad. But there's hope that like, okay, if I just look around me, if I pray, they'll come. They'll come.
Whoa, I have so much to say. Okay, first, I don't know if you know this, but there's like I'm gonna send you a picture of this beautiful painting from the Puerto Asís airport in like the Putumayo jungle in Colombia, like the closest airport to me, which was like over 2 hours. It was like 4 hours to get to. That was like the closest airport when I lived in the jungle. And there's this gorgeous painting of this indigenous woman with like long, beautiful black hair, and she's topless and she has like a baby in one arm and she has a pig suckling from her breast. Which the second that you told me about your grandma, I was like, it's fascinating to see that these stories of like, a woman who came over from Europe, dirt poor, brought a pig with her, and ends up like suckling the little baby pig when the mother dies. That imagery that I'm seeing is like the exact same story of this woman from the Colombian jungle who's living in a totally different territory, who's living in a totally different cosmovision of the world, who's living in a different timescape, right? And yet, the thread of humanity and the thread of what it means to be a mother that nurtures any baby, not even just a human baby, any baby is so profoundly medicinal. Like I'm like, your mom was her, or your great 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 grandma was her, right? I'm like, they're the same person at the end of the day, truly. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The next thing, what you were saying about like that plant, that birth control plant from Rome, reawakening in Africa, it makes complete and total sense, right? Rome had tons of colonies all over the world, really. I mean, all over kind of like that hemisphere of the world, many of which were in Africa, right? I think, I don't know how far south they got, but Egypt was huge with Rome and tons of trade that occurred, right? And so it's such a beautiful thing that it was safeguarded in a different place, right? And it's incredible, again, the ways in which these plants have a degree of intelligence and resilience and expansion of time scales that human beings at this moment in time can't fully comprehend because we've lost the understanding of lineage. We've been so fractured. And I know that it's very alive for people of European descent, but you do see it in other cultures and other lineages, the forgetting, the like constant forgetting, right? And something, I think that we talked about this when we were on the phone, kind of like planning for this episode. Something that I think about a lot is like my lineage that I was spiritually adopted into with the Kofan. They speak a lot about los invisibles, who are like the invisible people. And what they say is that the ancestors knew that there was going to be mass colonization. They knew that there was going to be a mass extinction of their people. They knew that their ways were going to be just demolished and obliterated. They knew, like they had prophesized it, for hundreds of years. They knew it was coming. And so what the like most powerful spiritual elders did is that they went invisible and they like went underground and they went to sleep because they were at that level of like spiritual advancement. They were able to like time travel essentially. And they said to their people, we will come back when it's safe and when humanity is ready for the reemergence of these teachings, right? And so when you have master teachers like my teacher who passed away, I mean, a little bit over a year ago now, when you have teachers who are like of that caliber, who are able to still carry their people's ways, even through the immensity of colonization, like the profound violence, and you're like, how? Right? How? It's because they learned from the plants of what it means to go invisible, what it means to go underground, what it means to shelter below the earth in like the womb of the mother and to reemerge in the moment when it's possible because they understand those time scales that our peoples have forgotten. And then it's something that I'm also thinking about of like, how do we not know that we were invisible people? How do we not know that we haven't forgotten these ways, but like we're reemerging, right? And to take a really different perspective on what it means to be quote unquote white and what it means to have no lineage and to have no culture. Because at the end of the day, I'm the same as you. I don't have a single person in my family who gives a shit about the plants, you know? Actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. They're all gardeners. None of them work with plant medicines in terms of like preparing herbal medicines in that way, but they're all gardeners, right? And so I'm like, okay, the land is alive in my lineage. It's alive. Like it's been calling to us all along, right? Okay, I want to move on to something that we were laughing about so hard, which is what the plants have taught us about the difference between a medicine and a poison. So let's go into it. Let's share all of the messy bullshit that we've done.
Yeah, we had a funny talk about this. Yeah, so my teachers have told me like there's medicine in everything, everything. And I think when I first started on my spiritual path and I was doing detoxes and I was in India, I was doing Ayurvedic cleanses, whatever, I had this notion that there was good stuff and bad stuff. And I think learning that medicine and poison live on a spectrum is really special because you can start to see like something that you think is just all good and I can just take this all the time and it'll be fine can actually you can have a relationship to it that's more like a relationship to a poison or like an addiction, you know. So we were joking about rape because oh it's tobacco but it's medicine. And yeah, I just remember like taking it every day and I'm like, but it's medicine as like an excuse instead of as an intention. And I feel like that's where we can start to have poison show up is if there's no true intention there and really like sitting with like what is it that's my intention, it can start to turn into poison. And I found this out recently with alcohol, actually, in Colombia. And maybe you already know this. There's mamus. There's a group of people that work with alcohol as medicine, and we work with it too as medicine in tinctures. And depending on the plant, you know, it can cross the blood-brain barrier very quickly, so it can help on a more potent scale. But again, we can see like in our culture, like oh, a medicine turned to poison, mostly because of that trauma wound of just like wanting to stay asleep and like not having an intention with it, you know? And so this has just been really interesting in my life because I have a lot of that spectrum of medicine and poison. And um, yeah, I got really sick last year, really, really sick. And I turned to all the medicines I could think of, but I had no relationship to them. So I was like, black cohosh, blue cohosh, both very powerful. Didn't know that. Know that now. And I was taking them in tincture form, and I was hoping that they would help with some pain that I was having in my stomach. Pain moved to my kidneys. I didn't know what to do. I took more medicines that I had did not have a relationship to, which I want to like really like stress is like if you don't have a relationship to the plant, then like if you don't know what it likes, what it doesn't like, it's like a friend. It's hard to have a relationship when you don't have their name, their favorite, whatever, you know, how to feed them, what they like, what they don't like, you know. So I got really sick. And I think part of that was just the taking of medicine that was actually, and I found out later, was actually aggravating to my kidneys, a lot of the tinctures I was taking. And so it became this very beautiful, painful path. But I think pain is a beautiful teacher in that way of like, hey, something's wrong. Something's um, not clear in this relationship. That doesn't mean like, ooh, bad, I'm bad. I need to punish myself or I need to avoid this because that can create kind of some of the problems we have nowadays. But instead being like, oh, how do you like to be treated? Let me try again, you know. Let me look at this again. And some of the work I've done to get back into dance is part of this like medicine and poison because dance became poison for me for a while. And it was this way of really harsh critical thinking towards my body, really incredible, like disorderly ways of processing. And it took a while to turn dance back into medicine. And there was that whole alchemy that had to happen. And part of it was like, okay, my body is a landscape, and each organ is a part of my landscape, and each curve, each bump, each whatever, it's all part of this landscape that I need to get to know. I can't just avoid it, push it away, you know. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's so much to say, but
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that all plants have taught me is what you really stressed kind of in the beginning, speaking to relationship. right? Like as soon as you said the black and blue cohosh, I was like, wait, that's really strong on the kidneys if you take it long term, you know? And I remembered, I was like, wait, she got a bad kidney infection. Like, oh my God, okay, like now the pieces are falling into place. And I think the ways in which a lot of people, myself, of course, very much included, move into a plant medicine path, not just with, like the psychedelic and psychoactive ones, but working with any of them, right? Like just getting a little herbal tincture. We come to the plants with the same kind of extractive and transactional relationship that we have with Advil and antidepressants and the Western medical complex, which I don't want to paint Western medicine as like purely evil. I literally come from like multiple doctors, nurses, dentists, Western medical professionals for the past couple generations, and I have deep honor and reverence for the importance of a lot of those interventions. And also, just within like the past couple decades, the way in which Americans in particular have transitioned our relationship to medicine in a way that's immensely codependent, right? And one of like, I need healing now. There's like a demanding energy that we come to doctors with, right? There's a demanding energy that we come to medications with or any kind of healing modality, that therapy, all of it, like we are an immensely impatient culture. And so much of what the plants teach us is just like slow down and get really clear about what it is in your heart that you actually need. And then put a prayer out into the universe and say, please connect me with my medicine. And when that medicine is presented to you, take the time to slowly build that relationship, like what you said, right? Like, I have been working with liver herbs, the same liver herbs, for like years on and off at this point. A lot of the ones you mentioned, dandelion root, burdock root, nettle is a wonderful one also for kidneys, right? Yellow dock root, all of those good ones, right? And it's a years long process of working with my liver and working with the anger that I hold and working with the stagnancy and the dis-ease that is created in my body on a psycho-spiritual biological level that the plants teach slowly. Not to say that the plants are like not potent, they are, but the medicine and the reorganization and the reorientation that they offer to our lives are not the kind of quick fix that we're going to get by popping an Advil. And so I appreciate you bringing up the importance of relationship with the plants because that is what I think is so missing in the context of whiteness, like this creation of whiteness and what our ancestors went through and what they chose to create and what has been in the like cosmic soup of globalization and capitalism and consumerism is lack of relationship at the end of the day. And so I'm thinking of like kind of wrapping up this portion of the interview by just asking you like what does it look like for you to welcome Plantcestors back into your life? Like, how do you honor them? How do you learn from them? How do you communicate with them? What are their teachings? And also, what would you offer to others who are feeling the call to the land, but have a similar story to you and I of like, they don't have any herbalists in their family. They don't have anyone who's going to like, prepare them a tea when they have a bad stomach ache, they're going to tell them to take Pepto-Bismol. Like, if there are people listening to this right now who are like, the plants are calling me and I have no idea where to start, like, what what kind of like seed of information would you offer to them to open up back to like plant-cestor consciousness?
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I'd like to start with just some compassion for why we are where we are now. And I think a lot of it has to do with pain, and the impatience can come from pain, you know. I feel it especially with headaches because they run in my family. It's like you just want it to go away. And because we've developed this quick fix way of dealing with things, we, you know, and I have so much compassion for my mom who deals with chronic migraines and has like a list of medications that she takes, because really the goal is just to be at peace. And but the lack of relationship, moving directly past that into please just make it go away, it can actually induce more stress in the body. And I think a lot of healing can happen when our body is not stressed out. um, so that's where like fun can come in, is like it doesn't have to be so serious. And for me, some of the simplest way that I could connect back to the land was like, okay, what makes me happy? Like what like truly like lights me up? And for some reason, I don't know, peppermint tea felt really fun and nice and a good way to end my evening. So I started drinking peppermint tea, and it started in a tea bag from Yogi Tea from King Soopers, right? You know, start wherever you can. And then it can be overwhelming, the world that we're in. It could be easy to be like, next time I'm going to try Tulsi, next time I'm going to try chamomile, next time. But if you can, like, learn one and maybe try next time the loose leaf and try putting it in a strainer and get to know the texture of the actual dried herb. And then maybe learn the living herb. You know, I started in an apothecary as my way to get back to the land more intently. And I was working with all the dried friends. And it was so special to come learn the living version of each of those friends. And so, you know, and then try, if you're in a place where you can plant it, maybe try planting it, you know. And if you're not, maybe look around and see, because we're all related. And so families pass along through a lot of different plants. So if it's not peppermint, maybe it's catmint or chocolate mint or Korean mint or whatever mint grows nearby you, you know. The mint family's large, and maybe it's hard to activate the mint family, so you go to the rose family, and there's so many there. And as women, the carrot family has a lot of friends, a lot of friends. Be careful with them, but a lot of friends. And yeah, I don't know. I remember like my family that I thought I would start with was the mustard family, because I had a vision that I was a lake in a past life and there were mustard family plants all around me. I was like, I don't even know what that means. And I was walking around with my phone, just like, who's mustard? Who's mustard? And all of them, it was like inedible, inedible. Don't try that. Don't take that, you know. But it was that yearning, that just like hopefulness that I would find something, someone, some way to like connect back. And I feel like slowly, that started to guide me to where now I can walk that same place where I just was stressed out trying to find a mustard plant. And there's skunk berries everywhere, and I just eat those. And I'm like, oh my God, you're everywhere. And so many, you know, so many people don't know about you. I'm so grateful to know you and to be witnessed by people walking by, like, what's the crazy woman eating berries? So you have to start somewhere, but that's where I started, and sort of, and slowly kind of found my way. And there's still things, even today, I was harvesting nettle. I love nettle, but I don't know how to harvest it. And I was just pretending I did. And I was using it for a meal for my partner and I. And he was like, maybe next time try it this way. It'll be better for the plant. It'll grow back quicker. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Sorry. So also just forgiveness for ourselves for like, we're going to mess up, you know, and it's going to get confusing. And there might be a plant that you really think is going to show you the way, and it ends up showing you something else. And um, yeah, it's a journey.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so funny. Nettle, I feel like is One of the first plants that I started working with when I was in Ireland, actually, when I was working on this farm in Ireland with this wonderful herbalist, this elder, who was just so sweet, so grounded, so down to earth. And she was talking about how the farmers would always cut nettle and they would beat themselves with it to help with arthritis because it's like really good for blood circulation. And it hurts like hell. Like it hurts so bad when you get stung by it, right? And it lasts for a long time and you like swell up. And I remember she was offering it to me. She told me to go learn with it because I had really heavy bleeding with my period because I had a copper IUD. And so my bleeding was just insane, you know? And nettle was such a helpful plant for me for a long time. And then at a different point in my life, I was working with it and it was like really drying me up like crazy. And it was giving me like horrible headaches. And the way that I was preparing it and like all of the other stuff that was going on in my life, like nettle was really not my plant in that moment. And that's another part of it is like relationships, right? Like it's like any relationship in your life. Sometimes that relationship is going to flow and it's the exact medicine that you need. And it's exactly what is calling to you to be learned. And then there's other times where we're like, oh, well, it worked the last time. Let me just go back to that. And it's like, no, actually, it's never the same. It's never the same because it's alive. The plants are alive and we are alive and we're coming to them as different people and also like we're sourcing them from different places. Like when I was in Ireland at that moment in time, nettle was perfect. When I was in New York City, already really feeling like dried up by life, and then I'm taking more nettle that can be very drying, like, yeah, of course I had horrible headaches. But then when I was in the jungle where it's extremely humid and I had like a lot of juiciness, like I could work with the jungle species of nettle, ortiga, and that was a very different story, right? Like it really helped balance me a lot of the time. And I was working a lot with ayahuasca, which is hard on the liver, hard on the kidneys. And so it was a supportive plant, but like the capacity to maintain aliveness within relationship in our dynamic flow with the plants is also something that is so foreign to us. Like it's like it feels like a different language that we have to learn how to speak. And luckily, the plants are the best teachers for that language. Like they are offering us this degree of sentience that goes so far beyond the words, which is something that you and I talked about. Oh my God, did you start listening to the telepathy tapes? Yes? Okay. Because the plants can teach us telepathy and we have to figure it out. Go listen to the telepathy tapes. I'm obsessed. Anyway, um, Becca, would you like to just kind of share with people about any of your offerings that you have going on right now, stuff that you're doing with the farm, how people can find you, dance classes, like you're always doing crazy stuff. So tell people how they can come and be crazy with you.
Well, thank you so much for this. Yeah, I live in a really beautiful place and Manitou Springs, which is where tribes have come to share water and have peace. It's a place that's always been for harmony. So I teach dance classes here. It's all about you're the land, your body is a landscape. So um, maybe I'll try and do Zoom classes again. I did that for a while, but you can find me here. I will welcome you with open arms. I also, my experience with copper IUD and with getting to know the carrot family plants is really deep. So if there's anybody out there who has struggles with birth control and with needing help with abortifactants, and I can tell you all of the things that I did wrong and all of the things that have helped me and also just like offer support because it's real and a lot of women I think are going through that pathway and trying to figure it out. So just I'm here. And then otherwise, you can find me on Instagram. I do things on there. I love bugs, so you'll probably see me talking about bugs because I love them. Um, and yeah, we can maybe put that in the notes. So.
Yes, perfect. Any info that you want to send me for how people can contact and connect with you, I'll put in the show notes. And yeah, really honoring the work that you do with the Carrot family. I mean, I also too have gone through like intense initiations and trainings around working with those plants that can help prevent pregnancy, and have also learned a lot of different mistakes and hormonal modulations and the impacts that they can have and all of that kind of stuff. So honoring the wisdom that you're carrying with that, because it's immensely tender and heavy work when we get into any kind of like women's reproductive stuff. The copper frickin' IUD, bro, like it is, there's a lot there. That's a whole other podcast episode that we'll do at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, honoring that path that you're walking in terms of like helping women really steward their reproductive sovereignty with those plantcestors is incredible. Um, so I guess yeah, I think I'll leave it on that note. We will continue on with an extended episode for any of the Substack subscribers. We are going to be getting really deep into some wounds that Becca and I have been moving through, also kind of at the same time in our lives, around womanhood and women's spaces, particularly like women's circles, women's retreats, women's like healing modalities. And I don't know how to say, like some of the bamboozlement of those spaces, and like the weird warping of feminism and thinking that you're going to be safer with women, and like all of the intense pain that comes from it, but also the beautiful medicine and the mirror work and the lessons that we have learned of like what does it mean to come into right relationship with womanhood in ourselves, and then with our sisters, with our families, and eventually hopefully with like larger extended communities. So yeah, we're going to be going into some deep stuff over on Substack. So thank you so much, Becca. Wow, it has been a gift, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, thank you.